To kick off day one of Canada's Farm Show, Chief Cadmus Delorme of the Cowessess First Nation is here to talk about roles Indigenous people play moving forward in agriculture. Chief Cadmus Delorme, a Cree and Saulteaux, is the chief of the Cowessess First Nation. Chief Delorme graduated from the Cowessess Community Education Centre in 2000. He later moved to Regina to pursue a Bachelor of Business Administration and a Certificate of Hospitality, Tourism, and Gaming Entertainment Management, and a Master's of Public Administration. Recently, he's completed an Institute of Corporate Directors designation. Welcome, Chief Delorme. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, Tonse, Anin Shuko. My name is Chief Cadmus Delorme. I just want to make a online presence as well. I know people are listening online. I'm Chief of Cowessess First Nation. Cowessess is an hour and 40 minutes east of Regina, and we have a huge presence in Regina as well as a population. I want to thank Elder Betty for the beautiful rendered prayer, and I want to thank you for coming to listen to me. We're going to go on quite a journey. I hope more people that could hear want to come and sit down, because I get very excited when I get to present, and I'm going to talk about the role Cowessess First Nation, or First Nation in general, play in agriculture, and a little bit of history of why sometimes when you walk around the Farm Progress Show, if Indigenous people are not, are 17% of this province, how come we're not more participating in the Farm Progress Show? And the end of my presentation is to talk more about what role we all play together as Indigenous and not all Saskatchewan and Canada, so that one day everybody will prosper when it comes to utilizing our land and so forth. And so I want to take us on a little journey here in the next 40 minutes. After about 40 minutes, I will start to wrap up. I understand talking that people's brains can only handle about 40 minutes of one person, so by then I'd probably start to get dry and my nose might start to grow a little bit, so we'll go with that. I just want to recognize Indigenous Peoples Day. It's really nice that the Farm Progress Show asked me to come and speak on a special day, what in Canada and Saskatchewan we call Indigenous Peoples Day. It's a day where we recognize that Indigenous people are prospering, that they share the land with everybody, that we're all here to grow together. This morning I'm supposed to be at Victoria Park soon after this. There's a huge celebration there today. So without further ado, I just want to show you a few slides. I'll get right into my presentation, and I'll pause for a little bit, and then I will talk a little bit about more about farming. I am going to lead a little bit off of farming a little bit, but it's all going to mean to a story to come back to why we're all here today. Hopefully if someone has a question or comment after, because I'm always open to talking about questions that you have as well. This is a picture of Cowessess First Nation. We're southeast to Saskatchewan. We currently are farming 5,000 acres of our land. And here's a picture I took with a drone that I have, and you're going to see that we are this was 2 summers ago. And this picture is really impactful to us because Cowessess was known as strong farmers long time ago, and now we're starting to bring that back again. Here's a few pictures of recently back at home on Cowessess. You're going to see on the right side, your right side, we own a transportation vehicle to get some of our product to the seller, which is Viterra, our local buyer. On the left side, you're going to see some of our team. One of the main things you're going to see on Team Cowessess is we're not just Indigenous on our team. It's the locals from Grenfell, Saskatchewan. It's our technical lead. Her name is Jessica Nixon. She's in the crowd here today. This was a picture we went out and took with our, we were removing the crop last summer. We wanted to give them supper in the field, so we come and fed them. You're going to notice I have cowboy boots on. You can see me with my little guy there. Those cowboy boots never picked up a bale in their life. I'm just being real. I'm what you call the farmer who is the chief who wants to get us into farming, but I'm more of the technical spokesperson for the team. In the background, you're going to see some of our bins. We are growing. Just to kind of give you an understanding, 4 years ago, Cowessess didn't farm. In the last 4 years, we have got up to 5,000 acres. Our assets are increasing. And this is the first reality I want to share. Cowessess, we have 55,000 acres of ready agriculture land. 4 years ago, we didn't farm none of it. We leased it all out, we rented it all out, we permitted it all out. And I'm going to get us into that little journey story as to kind of what happened in regards to a little bit of truth. But I just wanted to show you some of our other success. Cowessess is in the cattle industry as well. We have Angus. We got, give or take, about 130, 150 on certain times of Angus. We started this program back in 2008 as a food sovereignty, just having it there in case the world paused and Cowessess needed to rely. We had backup. Today, it's more of an economic spin-off for us. It is something that we are growing at. One of the challenges you're going to see here, this was, we were pregnancy test this time, and I tell you as a chief, I thought I had a tough job till I seen how they do pregnancy tests. And I always give it up to the farmers. I'm like, you're very solid on doing that. I'll stick to the desk job, but I'm always there to support. You're going to see on the right side, there's a picture in the back, one of our youth. We bring our youth in to try and mentor them, to show them what it is, hands-on. On the left side of myself, or the right side of myself, that's Terry Leroy. Cowessess First Nation has many Terry Leroys. Terry is someone who was raised as a farmer by his father, just like many here. But Terry, continues to do his little homestead stuff, but he comes in and helps us now. Terry is almost 70. I hope he's not in the crowd. I'm giving out his age. But Terry wants to retire soon. One of the realities Cowessess faces as we're getting into agriculture is the succession planning. And I know it's not just an Indigenous thing. I know sometimes it's really tough out there. But when we're 5 years into actual economic focus, one of our biggest challenges is trying to get our youth mentored to want to take over. It's not a 9-to-5 job as many are used to today, our younger ones. This is a lifestyle. On the other side, you're going to see a picture of Jessica. Jessica is one of our economic project directors. She's the one that comes in and helps. This is really important in reconciliation because Jessica's non-Indigenous. Just like many Cowessess friends, I have many friends out there that are in the crowd. People want to come and help. They want to come and share their knowledge. They want to come and help growth. And when Cowessess First Nation succeeds at farming, the province succeeds at farming. The country succeeds at farming. So it's really important to understand that this isn't an Indigenous without non-Indigenous people. Indigenous people in this country, right now, the biggest thing that we need in agriculture is coaching. We need to show and see what as many booths are here to share with you, a lot of this is new to many. And so when we have people on our team like Jessica and others, they're the ones here that are building those bridges and opening those doors. And some people in this country, maybe in this province, if you have an Indigenous community beside you, maybe you rent land, maybe you just have a coffee relationship in the local town. It is now time that we start to help Indigenous people utilize their land again. Cowessess First Nation, we took the risk 5 years ago, and we're very proud today. It wasn't an easy go, and I'm going to get into a little bit of that. We're also into other things. I just wanted to show a little bit of economics here. On the right side, your left side is the golf course. Cowessess owns a golf course. It's called Last Oak Golf and Country Club. It's located in the Copel Valley by Crooked Lake. We're also into renewable energy. On the east side of Regina, if you're ever at Costco and you just want to look a little more east and you see a turbine there, that is owned by Cowessess First Nation. And when you get very close to it, there's also solar panels around it. We're just finalizing. There's a new picture that'll come. Take that picture and times it by about 10 times. We got a huge field of solar panels just finalized there. We 100% sell it into the grid. So Cowessess is helping turn on 6 of these lights here, of the 8 of them right now with our turbines. It's something that we're helping in this province. You know, we'll always have to rely on resources to power this province, but we can subsidize with renewable energy, and Cowessess has taken a strong lead in it. South of Kipling, we're just about finalizing a 200 megawatt turbine business, which is valued at about $300 million. So I just want to let you know that economics is a huge part for Indigenous people. When we make $1 in economics, it comes back to our community. It helps with our language. It helps with our pride. It helps with our areas that are underfunded, because nobody chooses to kind of live in the sometimes poverty that maybe TV shows or you see from time to time. Nobody chooses that. That's why it's really important in agriculture and other things, because when you make that profit, it does get reinvested, but some of it always will come back to help sustain some of the inequalities that we have. Some of the other things Cowessess has been getting into lately is we're property managers on 7th Avenue in Regina here, not too far. There's a Tim Hortons there. That's on Cowessess First Nation property. And so there is land development. Even in Regina, you're going to see urban Indigenous lands, status lands, we might call it, Indian lands, we might call it. But you just got to remember, when land like that is purchased, it is usually for one perspective, and it's economic prosperity. It's to build something, to make profit, and to eventually go back to invest, to make more Indigenous people proud of who they are and where we come from. Something non-economical but really proud to Cowessess is, in order to get strong in agriculture, we kind of got to control our destiny when it comes to investing in our children, investing in our families. And Cowessess last year, our Premier Scott Moe, who I know spoke here last night, our Prime Minister Justin Trudeau came to Cowessess, and we signed the first inaugural child welfare reform, where Cowessess has full control over investing in our families in Regina, on Cowessess, and all across the country. So Cowessess is truly trying to take control of our economics and agriculture. I just wanted to kind of paint a picture of where Cowessess is today. I've been a chief for going on 7 years now. I got a gray hair for every month I've been chief. It's not an easy task being a chief, but I absolutely love the journey I'm on. And I really love being in Regina. I love saying that Regina is my city. It's where my Costco is, I always say, so that's my city. But I also know that in this province, we have so much potential. We have so much growth together, but in reality, sometimes there is an inequality. And nobody today created that inequality. Nobody today created the reason why Indigenous people are sometimes a part of the wrong side of the inequality. Nobody in this room or at this Farm Progress Show created what we call residential schools today. Nobody created the Indian Act. Nobody created all. But the thing is we all kind of got to understand that we all kind of inherited it. If we share this land collectively, and many families, generational, maybe you're first generation Canadian, you have that opportunity to grow, and I am so honored and so happy to see. But there was something that happened in history why Indigenous people are not prominent in the Farm Progress Show. And I know I'm here to talk about areas that Indigenous people could play, but I also want to take the opportunity to help us better understand the truth. And once you understand the truth without being cornered, without making it feel like it's our fault, because it's not our fault. But the thing is we must understand where we've been in order to know where we're going. And then at the end of the presentation, I do definitely want to give you some really good advice. Cowessess First Nation, we are 4,300 people. That's how much people are from Cowessess. 910 live on Cowessess, which is east of Regina, and 3,300 live off the reserve. So we have 1,400 people that live in Regina alone. We have more people that live in Regina than we do in our community. And so Regina is a huge population for Cowessess people. Just being here this morning at 9 o'clock, I met two of my Cowessess people. I always know when I see Cowessess people because we're really good-looking people, so I can always pick us out of the crowd. We have a very mixed heritage. You know, sometimes Indigenous into Saskatchewan, you're usually Cree, Saulteaux, or Ojibwe, we say. You're Dakota, Nakota, or Dene in the north. Cowessess, we're very proud to share that we're Cree, Saulteaux, and Métis. That's our heritage. Back when Cowessess first settled, when we first started farming, when my ancestors put down their bows and arrows and relying on the buffalo and started planting and seeding, we went to the Métis settlement in Manitoba to recruit the best farmers, and they came back to Cowessess at that time. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the great progress we made. Some of the things with Cowessess land. Today, Cowessess owns about 100,000 acres of land. But I want to define owns. When I say owns, it's actually in this economic structure Canada creates. First Nations don't own land. And that's the first big challenge when it comes to Indigenous people wanting to be farmers. In order for Indigenous people to get actual land title in farming, we need permission from Canada to do things. And I'll give you an example. When Cowessess built that Tim Hortons just down the block here on 7th Avenue, we needed to budget $80,000 to convince the Department of Justice that a Tim Hortons was no risk to Canada on that land. And giving that example is, the reason being, is the Indian Act. The Indian Act in this country is a Canadian law. The Indian Act oversteps the Bank Act of Canada. So when farmers today are looking for credit or wanting to buy more machines or using your land for credit, First Nations can't do that. So when we're trying to buy more machines and grow, we predominantly can only use the profit from our crops that year to reinvest. And so sometimes people say, well, don't you have millions of dollars in Ottawa that you could use? It's actually locked in, and it's actually Canada telling us what we can use from it. So it's really, I'm not here for a history class. I just wanted to really keep it about economics and the role Indigenous people play. But in order to help and understand and lift, we kind of got to understand a little bit about the truth. Cowessess First Nation, we lease out just about 85% of our land to non-Indigenous farmers. So in the city here, First Nations people own land all over Saskatchewan. And so some of the land is like checkerboard. You'll have like little acres or quarters or sections here and there. What happened was, years ago, even before anybody in this room was born, Canada was already starting to work against Indigenous people, and land was being decreased. And today there's what you call land claims, and it was just to fix a wrong. Cowessess in 1996 settled a claim called the Treaty Land Entitlement Claim. It's a partnership between Saskatchewan, Canada, and Cowessess. And Cowessess received $46 million to purchase land. That's what it was, is to purchase land. The reason being is that treaty, Cowessess was supposed to be given this much land in our treaty agreement, but Cowessess was only given this much land. And so that $46 million is to bring Canada up to Cowessess to where we were supposed to. So sometimes in Saskatchewan, you're going to see little checkerboards of status land. Some of you might rent Cowessess land because we lease out about 85% of it. 4 years ago, we leased out 100% of it. And so we are now starting to choose some of our land and farming. And I'm going to get a little bit into our farm plan later on. But I just want to let you know that we have agriculture, grazing, and just land naturally that we just want to keep natural as well. And so that's just a little picture of how much land. Cowessess is the biggest land holder of First Nations in southern Saskatchewan. And we have the potential to be a part of many of the growth in agriculture. We want to get there. I just want to tell you that that is a goal of Cowessess, is to play a role in the Farm Progress Show for years to come. sit with many and just share your progress, share our progress, because we all succeed at the end. What happened in the history? I want to take you a little quickly through the history. In 1874, what we all share Treaty 4 today, Cowessess, my ancestors, we put down our bows and arrows, we stopped chasing the buffalo, relying, our buffalo was everything to us, and we started to pick up the cow and plow, we started to break land, and within 10 years, by 1880, Cowessess First Nation, we progressed really fast in agriculture, like really fast. Like the ancestors were so adaptable to the new change. We wanted to fulfill this new thing we called farming. And by Cowessess, we started to succeed. I just wanted to share with you some of our successions. By 1885, Cowessess First Nation in the Broadview area, we were winning cattle competitions. We were winning wheat competitions when you'd go to these shows and you would compete. That's very competitive in Canada. We're still very competitive in a very diplomatic way. But something happened around 1885. Today, we learned in the history, the Métis, Louis Riel. Well, when the pass system happened, Cowessess wasn't allowed to participate after 1885 because in Canada, they made First Nations get a pass and you couldn't leave the reserve. So many of our successful farmers would be at the edge of the reserve with their big cart full of grain ready to go to the pool, but the government official wouldn't give my ancestors a pass to go to town to sell it. And then we had our cattle ready to go to competition, so happy and excited, and the government official wouldn't give my ancestors a pass to leave the reserve. And so it started to create this gap when Cowessess was already starting to succeed. In 1907 was a really tough year for Cowessess. Post-World War I, there was a lot of land needed in Saskatchewan, and the government tricked Cowessess First Nation in 1907 to relinquish and sell half of our best farmland by tricking us into a vote. And in 1907, Cowessess gave up half of our First Nation reserve today, and it was our best farmland. And soon as that happened, Canada gave it out to the new settlers, to the war veterans and stuff like that. So it really set back Cowessess even more. And some of the things of what happened today and what you were taught, what I was taught in school about the past, about why Indigenous people are not in farming, is kind of set us up for a little bit of, we're a little ignorant to the truth once in a while. And that's not a bad thing, but the thing is, some of the things we've learned is that agriculture on First Nations reserve are generally thought to have failed because the First Nation lacked interest. That is a false. Indigenous people wanted to be a part of the growth. The truth is, First Nations people, we were anxious and excited. We were very anxious. It was government policies that undermined the growth that Indigenous people had. Repeated requests from First Nations for Canada to help in not putting ceilings on our growth. We were determined to create an economic base. I just wanted to share a couple more things here. The technology and whatnot, everything kind of set up in a way where Indigenous people went from succeeding in farming in the early 1900s to going down to almost no farming after that. I just wanted to show you this picture. Growing up in my house, my mom and dad, I want to talk a little bit about my mom and dad because our kitchen table was everything to me growing up. My mom and dad are residential school survivors. They've been through the worst, but they always taught me a good conversation and a good smile at our kitchen table. But my mom had this logo called End of the Trail all over our house. It was on our kitchen table, under our mats. It was on a wall. And, years later when I met Betty and I went to First Nations University of Canada, I'm a graduate from it in the city here, I did a paper on this logo. And this logo really gives truth to Indigenous people wanting to get into agriculture today. Somebody drew this in 1908. This is a picture from 1908 called End of the Trail. It was the last of the Indigenous people who didn't attend a residential school, but were no longer relied on the buffalo. This old man, before he passed away, drew this picture in 1908. And he says, the warriors of Indigenous people are now sleeping. He said, change has come, and not a change for the good. And he drew this picture, and his warrior horse and the warrior himself were on the horse. They're looking sad. But one of the things in the research is that spear wasn't thrown to the ground, so no giving up happened. Today, what we have to do with inclusion of Indigenous people in agriculture and growth, we got to lift those heads up. That's a motivation that I'm to the task to do, and we're helping Cowessess get into strong economic prosperity. But some of the things we inherited and some of the things we got to understand is what is reality today for Indigenous people, what is actually stopping us. Because the biggest challenge today is Canadians, I feel you get it. I feel you want part of growth, but you don't know the past of what it's going through Indigenous minds. In order to help Indigenous people, you kind of got to understand what the truth is and the challenges that we face. The number one today that this whole country has learned in the last year are what we call unmarked graves at former residential schools. This is a very uncomfortable conversation to have in this country right now. I'm not here to debate, I'm not here to pick sides, but I just wanted to let you know that there's two things that we learned in this country from this moment of unmarked graves. Is number one, for Indigenous people, it's validation. Validation of the pain, frustration, tiredness of just trying to remain Indigenous in a country that still isn't welcoming Indigenous knowledge. To my Canadian friends and family, my Saskatchewanian friends and family, a lot are telling me, Chief, my shield is down. I'm admitting that I maybe didn't learn the truth. Maybe I don't know enough about the truth of Indigenous people in Canada. I want to learn more. And it's a really important moment, because if we all reset our compass just a little bit, Indigenous and not, in one generation we can change things like the Farm Progress Show, we can change the inequality in this province, and that our children can truly grow up. Doesn't matter if they're caramel skin colored, vanilla skin colored, that they all have an opportunity to be dreamers, because that's what this country raises us to be. But we got to understand that we kind of inherited something. I just wanted to show you a few other things happening in this country. Sometimes you watch them on the news. Sometimes we take positions right away. Sometimes our ignorance just takes forth. There's something happening in the East Coast right now, and it's a fishing dispute. Some are arguing that, well, everybody has to only fish at certain times. It's not fair. And so it created this Mi'kmaq lobster fishing dispute. It's actually still going on today. The media are just not showing it as much. We got to understand that Indigenous people in this country are rights holders. Indigenous people are not shareholders, we're not stakeholders, we're rights holders. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing scary about that. But the thing is this fishing dispute is about a treaty in 1752 that the then Crown signed with the Mi'kmaq, guaranteeing sustaining of life. That's all this is. It's a treaty that we have to respect. On the west coast of Canada, right now we have a gas-linked pipeline that is trying to connect to the ocean, because we're landlocked here in Alberta and Saskatchewan. Some people will come with their preconceptions. Indigenous people are just stopping the economic growth in this country. This is not about Indigenous people stopping the growth. This is the fact that Aboriginal title in the province of BC, here in Saskatchewan we got treaties which create our relationship. In BC they don't have treaties yet. So we got to understand that Aboriginal title is real, and that's nothing to be scared away from. In our own province, we have a few camps that came up in our park. And some of the MLAs told city police, get those camps out of there. They're disturbing the peace. That's a public place. The thing is these camps are people who are tired. Indigenous people that are tired are just trying to get their voice out there, of children being apprehended, of justice, what they feel is inequality, things like that. All I'm trying to tell you here is I'm not here to take a position. I'm just here to tell you, when you work with Indigenous people, which we all will do from time to time, we just got to understand that, sometimes that growth is there, but that tiredness is there as well. This happened 11 years ago now, Idle No More. It was a march across the country. I just want to say this one was to understand that Indigenous laws are still alive. They're still there. And the thing is federal government was about to pass some omnibus bills that would have actually went against Indigenous laws. It created something. I hope to not see Idle No More. I want us to focus on progress. But the thing is, as Canadians, we kind of got to understand that we do have a collective together to understand each other's laws. I was very young when this happened. I was only, I think, 7 or 8 years old, but I learned about it in university. But this was a big game changer in the country. In the late 80s, early 90s, something in this country we know as Oka today. This was about a local town that was about to build a back nine golf course. They did all the bylaw checks, all the provincial checks, all the federal checks, but they never checked in with the Mohawk. And the Mohawk said, sorry, you can't build there. We got unmarked graves there. We got a historical burial site. No, we did all our check marks, created this huge, huge debate in this country. I heard it was really tough at the time on both sides. And so all I'm trying to say is this was a land dispute. The more that we try and not welcome in and better understand Indigenous rights and Indigenous laws, the more against progress we may have in the future. And I don't want that. I'm here to try and break those barriers, to educate and to better understand. The Supreme Court of Canada, over 275 rendered decisions were in favor of Indigenous rights. We don't have to take all of our disputes to the courts. Who gets rich at the end? It's the lawyers that get rich. And no offense to lawyers out there. I know you do a great job. But the thing is the more we put down our ignorance and just better understand, the more that we're going to gain in economics, in agriculture, and even just sharing this beautiful land. I just needed to really share that with you because in order to talk about agriculture, we got to understand the truth that we all inherited. In order to move to real reconciliation, which I can really feel in the audience in this Farm Progress Show in Regina and Saskatchewan, people are more on board with reconciliation today than we've ever been. But you cannot move to reconciliation until you at first accept and understand the truth. I gave you a really, really quick synopsis on the truth. The truth is out there. There are many places to go and learn more about the truth. One of the things we got to understand is sometimes what we were told in the past, sometimes what our parents told us, sometimes what we always thought was the truth, is actually far from the truth. Now it's time for both sides, and I'm including Indigenous on this. It's both sides, Indigenous and not. We all must put that shield down, have uncomfortable conversations, talk about the inequality, re-educate ourselves, mold it back together, and coincide together. Because there's a lot of land in this province that does have Indigenous rights to it, status land. But the thing is many are not farming it because they're trying to see how it works. Many non-Indigenous people are not knowing how to bring up the conversation. They're not going like, do I just go to the reserve and tell them I'll help them with farming? No, you don't do that. But it's about how do you make sure Indigenous people always have that opportunity to grow as well. Here's a picture I took. It's the only horse I ever rode in my life. I really come off as a farmer here, but I'm not, I tell you. I just love to talk about it. I put this up here because we truly did inherit something together. And that's all I'm trying to get across in this part before I talk about more of the strengths and the opportunities, is we truly inherited this. But Indigenous people want to be a part of the growth. Indigenous people want to be a part of the Farm Progress Show. Indigenous people want to be talking about, the wheat and barley and cattle and potential goats and everything like that. That is connected to our land, and that is connected to who we are. And so I just wanted to really drive that. This is the way Cowessess got into agriculture 4 to 5 years ago. I got elected in 2016, and we were doing really good in certain areas, but I grew up on Cowessess. I grew up on my First Nation. I graduated from my high school, and I always watched these non-Indigenous people come on to Cowessess with the nice big machines, and then plant the crop and then take it. And every year I'd watch unemployment on my First Nation quite high. I was asking, well, what do they pay for renting our land? Some of the land was rented too low on what the fair market value was. So when I got elected as chief, I get elected with a team of 8, there's 9 of us. And we start talking about the land. We're like, well, let's raise our rent to fair market value. Why would someone rent off the reserve and pay $50 an acre, but come onto the reserve and pay $30 an acre? It's the soil is the same. Why is it different? So we raised our to fair market value. Some of the farmers bickered. They kind of got mad, and we just said, okay, well, we'll go rent it to someone else. And they're like, no, we'll rent it, but it's just fair market value. That's all we wanted, was just to be treated fair. And then we started using some of our profit to start making our plans. The first plan we made is the green one. It's a white border, so you don't see the borders. But we made a farm plan. We just did an internal farm plan. Jessica joined the team, a couple others joined the team, and we made a plan to one day farm our lands. This was back in 2017. Canada had this grant from Government of Agriculture, Indigenous Ag Initiative grant, and we got a grant to do 2 plans. We did 2 professional plans. We did out a bid, and Myers Norris Penny got the bid. I always thought Myers Norris Penny just did finances. I didn't realize they were into agriculture. And Myers Norris Penny won the bid, and they did our farm plan, our grain farming operation. And that's when it actually started to become real. We're like, holy cow, we could really do this. Look at this plan. You just bite off a little bit every year, and you just grow and grow and grow. Then we wanted to see what the supply chain was. Can Cowessess ever own and sell machinery off the #1 highway? Can Cowessess ever own our own chemical business? So we did a byproduct plan as well, and we partnered with a neighboring nation, Ochapowace First Nation. So we wanted to make sure we did it right. One of the things Indigenous people need to play when agriculture is you don't just go from idea to planting the crop. You do need to get your jurisdiction, your understanding of the laws and the finances, the institutions, which ones are going to support you, which ones are not. Then you put your team together. We felt we did all those steps. One of the challenges I faced is I love showing tangible results. As a chief, I think that's just an elected official thing. But in farming, it's like delayed gratification. You're like, okay, just wait. And I'd lose patience sometimes, and I'd tell my team, let's just plant 3,000 acres. They're like, Chief, we're doing 500 acres this year. Calm down. I'm like, okay. You just get too excited. But our plan laid it out. Some of the challenges that First Nations face today is the inequality. We can't use our land as equity or as collateral to go and get machinery, to go get credit for our chemicals and our raw material. Everything we do, we have to vet through chief and council, which kind of makes it political, which I don't like, but as the chief, I try to keep things non-political. We have to make sure that banks understand what our land value is, because the Bank Act of Canada views status land as a quarter of what it's truly worth. That's just what the Bank Act of Canada views status land. The second part is staff. We couldn't keep consistent staff because farming left our families 2 to 3 generations ago. And so we are trying to bring back, just assuming young people would just come and run and jump in the combine or be there on a Saturday morning calving at 7 a.m. We realized that wasn't reality. And one of the things we did is we incorporated our company. We wanted to incorporate a company to be professional. So we started a company called 4C Farms, which is Cowessess First Nation owned. The challenge we face still today in year 4 is consistent capacity building. We got Jessica, who is helping us with the planning part, we hired an agrologist from Grenfell, Saskatchewan, non-Indigenous. His name is Reed Pillar. So Reed is helping us with the agrology part of things. We have Terry Leroy. We had Big Al. Terry Leroy and Big Al are from Cowessess. I'm just talking like I'm at home now. And they're hands-on. We have a couple of young people like Serene. But the thing is that is one of our challenges moving forward. Is we are going to have to rely on local non-Indigenous people to come and help us. I do believe it's going to grab on soon, but I don't think it's going to grab on in the next 5 years. That's a reality we face. The current system, agriculture system, was not built with Indigenous inclusion. One of the things right now in this country is one representative is at the table from every province and territory talking about agriculture in the next 10 years in this country. I asked, who is there speaking up for Indigenous people? And the response was, well, your provincial person here is speaking for Indigenous people. And I'm like, but sometimes they don't know what to say. So the thing is the system wasn't built for Indigenous people to succeed on status land. That's something that we have to address in order to make it long term. There are many things out there. Invest in grants. Please, when an Indigenous people get a grant, it's not just free money. It's not just the government giving away money. Right now, there's an inequality in this country. And when Cowessess gets a grant for farming, we 100% put it into farming, but it's trying to bring us up to parity with our local family farmers who are generational, who have the fleet of bins and machines. And all we want is parity. That's all we want is parity. And because of the past, we feel we don't have it. So we apply for grants and we get them. And it really helps us a lot. We're testing other markets right now. Buffalo, we're just kind of seeing if there's a market there. Goats, I have a friend in the crowd, Bert, who is very big on, educating us on, the role goats can play. It doesn't only just eat the things cows and horses don't eat, but it actually is a meat that is, has potential. We partnered with Ducks Unlimited 2 years ago. So one of the things about Indigenous people is we're stewards of the land as well. And, everybody's a steward to the land, not just Indigenous people. It's part of our strong values. But what we did with Ducks Unlimited is we started to, on corners of our farmland, we started to reproduce them to be natural terrain, just on corners, so it doesn't affect the machines when they're going around too much. And it just allows our natural animals and insects and that to just have a place to maintain, because the more we break land, they have less places to go. And so that's something we took into factor, and Ducks Unlimited and Cowessess have a really good partnership today. Here's our future. I just wanted to kind of wrap it up here. We're farming 5,000 acres this year. I got told last week, and I'm going to get too excited because it's not real yet. We're going to farm 6,500 acres next year. Our goal on Cowessess by 2025 is to get to about 10,000 acres one day. I think 20,000 acres would be our max, but Cowessess has over 40,000 acres of grain land alone. Like, we can play a huge role in the agriculture industry. We also want to test out the byproducts. We one day want to get into the byproducts to see if there's anything there for us. And the more Cowessess succeeds at farming, the more everybody in this province succeeds. The more, places like the Farm Progress Show succeeds. Here's a couple books if you're book readers. We have a gentleman on Cowessess. He's still with us today. He's 94. His name is Harold Leroy. He was one of our biggest farmers when he was a young man. He wrote a book called The Treaty Promises. It talks about his life farming on the reserve in the 1940s. It's a really good book. You'll see a picture of him there. That's him on the left. That's his grandson and great-grandson sitting with him. His great-grandson is a powwow dancer. Another book that I offer for you to read if you're looking for an audible book, if you like to listen to books, there's a book called Indigenomics. It's from a friend of mine, Carol Ann Hilton. It talks about how the more we invest in economics, the more the gap will truly decrease when it comes to relationships with Indigenous people. Here's my last book I want to offer. Of course, you didn't come here to listen to me give you books. I'm just giving these as options. But Sarah Carter did a good book on what happened in the history. And so if anybody really wants to know about the history, it's a pretty heavy book, but it talks about how Cowessess in many nations, if we weren't oppressed, we would truly be a part of this show today in the big progress, because my ancestors really took off with it. And the thing is today as a young chief and many support at home, we want to get to that level we were always supposed to be. Here's a few pictures. Here's Big Al. Big Al's from Cowessess. Big Al worked with his hands his whole life. He now drives one of our machines for us. He's just one of those workers. You rely on him, he'll show up. On the other side is a picture of our second chief of Cowessess. On the top left, his name's Louis O'Soup. He was really instrumental in farming. He was the one that went to the Métis Nation in Manitoba in 1880, recruited the best Métis farmers and brought them back to Cowessess, which today we're very proud of our heritage of a little bit of Métis. And last, this is my last picture. This is a picture that I took not too long ago. Cowessess owns those bins. We placed them specifically on Cowessess, where Cowessess people will see them every day when they drive down our main road. This is something you didn't normally see on Cowessess, but the more they see it, the more they're going to be like, we are farmers now. And Cowessess does want to grow. I want to thank all of you for letting me share my couple words with you. I just want to say on Indigenous Peoples Day, it's really important that we understand the truth, but I just want to leave you with one last thing. Indigenous people want to be a part of the growth. Nobody in this country doesn't. The thing is we all got to put our shield down and kind of accept the truth a little more. And I tell you, in one generation, our kids and our grandkids will thank us for our hard work today. Thank you very much for letting me share some words.
Mikey? Thank you so much, Chief Delorme. It's been a pleasure. We do have a few minutes for questions if anybody would like. There's a couple of microphones in the middle of the room. So if you think of any questions for the Chief, we're happy to take them. Chief, from my own perspective as a mother, I've noticed so many differences in the curriculum in school. From what I took learning about Indigenous people to what I help my kids learn about in their social studies programs. Are you content? Is there still some work that we need to do in the education system on the curriculum piece of that for kids to learn?
Thank you. Oh, is my mic on? I think you're going back and forth. Thank you. So it talks about what our kids are learning in school today, the curriculum. I believe our Generation Z and our millennials are being, given so much information. The thing that worries me is not the curriculum. It's when these kids go home to their kitchen table, and sometimes because the parents and grandparents weren't taught the truth, that they challenge them. And then sometimes that ignorance might continue. So that's the thing is there's no mandatory Indigenous studies class coming to the kitchen table. So it's kind of up to us to put our shield down and learn more. But the curriculum could always do better, but I think it's doing its verdict right now on speaking the truth.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I know for me as a parent, one of the life lessons we work on at the kitchen table is the difference between fault and responsibility. I don't know if we have any other parents in the room, but I absolutely despise it when my kids yell, "It's not my fault." And a lot of the conversations we have are around fault versus responsibility. And it wasn't your fault that it spilled, but it is your responsibility to clean it up. And I think we can use some of that message when it comes to our Indigenous learning as well.
Awesome.
It's not our fault, but it is our responsibility.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you.
it. Thanks.